Osama bin Laden. The name alone evokes strong emotions. To some, he was a freedom fighter, a devout Muslim who challenged the West. To others, he was a terrorist, a murderer responsible for the deaths of thousands. Regardless of perspective, one thing is certain: bin Laden's life and actions left an indelible mark on the world. Understanding bin Laden's journey, from his privileged upbringing to his role as the leader of a global terrorist organization, is crucial to grasping the complexities of modern terrorism. This is not a story of glorification but one of examination. Osama bin Laden was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in 1957. He was one of more than 50 children of a wealthy construction tycoon. Despite his privileged upbringing, bin Laden's life would take a very different path. From a young age, bin Laden was exposed to a strict interpretation of Islam. His religious views were deeply influenced by his teachers. As a teenager, bin Laden became increasingly religious. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 proved to be a turning point in bin Laden's life. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 provided a rallying cry for Muslims worldwide. Bin Laden, outraged by the plight of the Afghan people, traveled to the region to join the resistance. Initially, his role was primarily focused on providing financial and logistical support to the Afghan Mujahideen. However, bin Laden's involvement gradually deepened. He became directly involved in the fighting, gaining valuable experience and forging alliances with other jihadist leaders. The Afghan Jihad for bin Laden was more than just a local conflict. This experience would prove to be formative, shaping his worldview and laying the foundation for the creation of al-Qaeda. In the aftermath of the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan in 1989, bin Laden returned to Saudi Arabia, hailed as a hero by some. However, his growing disillusionment with the Saudi government, particularly their alliance with the West, led him to establish al-Qaeda in 1988. This marked a significant escalation in bin Laden's ambitions. He shifted his focus from fighting local conflicts to waging a global jihad against the United States and its allies. Al-Qaeda, meaning the base in Arabic, served as an umbrella organization for a network of militant Islamic groups. Under bin Laden's leadership, al-Qaeda evolved into a sophisticated terrorist organization. The birth of al-Qaeda marked a turning point in the history of terrorism. Section 5. The ideology of hate. At the heart of bin Laden's ideology was a deep-seated hatred for the West, particularly the United States. He viewed the United States as an imperialist power, responsible for the suffering of Muslims worldwide. Bin Laden's anti-Western sentiment stemmed from a complex mix of religious, political, and historical grievances. He pointed to the United States military presence in the Middle East, particularly in Saudi Arabia, as a violation of Islam's holiest sites. Bin Laden also condemned United States foreign policy in the region, particularly its support for Israel and its sanctions against Iraq. His ideology, however flawed, provided a powerful motivator for violence and terrorism. Section 6. The Horror of 9/11s. On September 11, 2001, the world watched in horror as terrorists associated with al-Qaeda carried out a series of coordinated attacks against the United States. 19 militants hijacked 4 commercial airplanes, crashing 2 into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City and 1 into the Pentagon just outside of Washington, D.C. The 4th plane crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after passengers and crew members attempted to regain control. The 9/11 attacks resulted in the deaths of 2,977 people, making it the deadliest terrorist attack in human history. Bin Laden, in a video released shortly after the attacks, claimed responsibility, further solidifying his image as the world's most wanted terrorist. Section 7. A decade of hiding and a fateful end. In the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, the United States launched a global manhunt for Osama bin Laden. He vanished into hiding. reportedly seeking refuge in the mountainous region along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Despite a massive international effort, bin Laden managed to evade capture for nearly a decade. However, his luck finally ran out on May 2, 2011. Acting on intelligence gathered over several years, United States Navy SEALs conducted a raid on a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. During the raid, bin Laden was shot and killed. Section 8. A Legacy of Terror. Osama bin Laden is dead, but his legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the world. He left behind a fractured world, grappling with the consequences of his actions. His ideology, though rejected by the vast majority of Muslims, continues to inspire a small minority to commit acts of violence. The fight against terrorism, a fight that intensified after 9/11, is far from over. Bin Laden's death, while a significant blow, did not erase the underlying conditions that give rise to extremism. The world continues to grapple with the threat of terrorism, constantly evolving and adapting to new challenges.